Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to today's webinar. 30 odd attendees in the room so far. We do have over 100 registered, so we're going to give it a minute. In the meantime, let us know in the chat. Get acquainted with the interface, what you're looking at, which would be bottom right-hand corner. Let us know where you're coming from today. I'm sitting in Dublin in Ireland. Tom, I think you're over in Liverpool. Chris, perhaps down in London, but we'll cover that in a few minutes. But everyone else, jump into the chat. Tell us where you're listening in from today. Get acquainted with the interface. We'll have a couple of polls throughout, just a chance for you to throw your opinion on the board, maybe get some questions answered as well. Hey, Jen, all the way from Minneapolis. Welcome. So we're climbing up. There's Mark in from Wicklow. Okay, numbers are climbing. This is good. And I think we should be just about ready to go. We've got Cyril in from Zurich. Welcome. Kumar in from India. John in from the Philippines. Wow, we've got a really eclectic mix. Lachlan in from London. Michael Atlanta, welcome. Henry in Stockholm. We've got London represented. Drizzly Mansfield. Okay, it's currently nice and dry where I am. Hope it clears up for you soon. Wow, Belgium, Texas, Birmingham, Worcester, Gloucestershire, London, York. Wow, amazing. Great, let's start. Today's content is going to cover understanding marketing on core. It comes in the same form of two main names, Marketing Cloud Growth and Marketing Cloud Advanced. In showing a fair bit of Salesforce technology today, and because we've got some representation on the call from Salesforce, and because I used to work at Salesforce, we have to do a forward-looking statement. Basically, what it will tell you is, make any of your purchasing decisions on Salesforce based on currently available software technology, whatever is GA. In doing that, you'll always have what's available to you today, and any decisions you make will be based on what you currently have available, and not what we might show, discuss, and talk about by way of roadmap statements, etc. So a little safe harbor on that. On the left-hand side of the screen, that's me, VP Sales at MarkCloud. I've led the sales team, marketing team, biz dev team since June 2023. Prior to that, I spent a couple of years at Salesforce, where I met Tom. Tom is a founder and CEO of MarkCloud. He'll be leading a lot of the content today because he's taken on the job at MarkCloud of being one of the main innovators around new products, technology from Salesforce. So he's got all the intel. No pressure, Tom. And Chris is joining us to give us a little bit of the flavor from what Salesforce are saying in this lane. Chris is an RVP, a Regional Vice President, Data Marketing and Commerce Cloud for the UKI and DACH regions. And Chris, we'll get you in nice and early. We've got a couple of questions, but I'm happy if you wanted to give us a little intro to yourself, where you sit at Salesforce, and what brings you to the call, I suppose.
Yeah, thanks, Owen, and really nice to see everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. As it says, I lead our data, commerce, marketing cloud business for public sector and education within UKI. I've been with Salesforce for 10 years, so seen quite a bit of change over that time. And this stuff we're discussing today is some of the most exciting stuff. I've pushed really, really hard for it to make sure it's all there. But even prior to my 10 years at Salesforce, I've spent now around about 20 years within the kind of MarTech and data space. So it's I'm really excited about this session. I'm really excited about what you're going to see.
Amazing. To get you warmed up, we've got some easy questions, hopefully. What we'd like to know, just as a set of precedent for what we're going to cover in the rest of the call, Data Cloud is a big theme across a lot of conversations I'm having with Salesforce customers who we work with, serve, and just generally in the world. It's always been about getting the data right so that you can do everything on the far side of it. In brief, and just for everyone's benefit to set a kind of foundational level, what is Data Cloud for?
Yeah, I think so. It's me an easy question now. Data Cloud's one of those things that I actually tend not to talk about too much. I feel like it's the first rule of Data Cloud Club is that we don't really need to talk about Data Cloud. And I think that's actually because I think it's best described as being an enabling technology. It's kind of similar to that in the way of like MuleSoft. It's its own new thing, really. It's a layer that sits on top of your data repositories, but underneath your front office applications and your experience. And it's there to bridge the gap between those two things. That's where the disconnect is, and that's where all the problems are. And it really aligns with the mantra that we've been pushing, which is that before we take any application through an organization, whether that's a CRM or even launching something like a chatbot, you've really got to get horizontal across the data. And that's where Data Cloud really fits into that space. And as you alluded to, with that kind of unified layer, that's the way that we get rid of that fragmented silo view of the data that leads to that inconsistent experience. And the inconsistent experience is costing organizations money. It's causing citizens and customers to kind of tear their hair out. And ultimately, it kind of ends up with inbound calls cost, trust diminished, satisfaction dropped. And really, it's just a pure frustration. And I think the second part of that around Agentforce, which I should probably touch upon, because I don't think we can do a Salesforce call anymore without us discussing Agentforce. But that really plays into that world sort of perfectly. The usual experience of chatbots, which is kind of frustrating, nothing really gets done. I sort of consider it as being in like a holding pattern when you're in a flight into Heathrow trying to get in. You're just stuck waiting to get through to somebody. And Agentforce is really the opposite of that, right? Agentforce is this new third wave of AI, which is digital agents, digital workforce. And that is all being powered by Data Cloud. But before there was agents and before we had that ability, a couple of key things had to take place, kind of technological loops and sort of advances that had to happen. One of those was vector databases. So essentially the ability for us to store PDFs, to take call recordings, call histories, videos, etc., all of that stuff that's kind of all messy data. Had to be able to eat that. Data Cloud can. Then you needed this multi-chain reasoning, MCR as it's known. And this is kind of like the next level of how do I instruct AI and how does it think about what I've asked it to do? So multi-layered reasoning, where it's actually considering, before I answer this, what other things should I actually be considering about that are going to inform my actual response to you? And the combination of those things has led us to this point where Salesforce is pioneering agents, and these agents are certainly within the space of public sector and education. They're going to revolutionize things.
So much for a hard question. Great answer. You're bringing back memories of circling Heathrow many times on flights over and back from Dublin. But I get it. It's the journey to unify the data and then to begin all the good fun stuff. Brings us a little bit to what the crux of the call will be about: Marketing Cloud, growth, and advanced. Again, what would you have as I suppose your opinion is easy. But what do you think the value is for new customers coming to Salesforce when they're seeing the innovations in Marketing Cloud, growth, and advanced?
Yeah, and it's a real big moment. I've been pushing for this for kind of 4 years. We've been pushing primarily for the UK residency to arrive, which we have now in Data Cloud, and we have it with MC Growth and MC Advanced. That's a huge, huge moment for us when it comes to trust and handling sensitive data. And really, I think you'll both feel the same way. You've been around the ecosystem. This concept of CRM being here and communication tools being here, CRM is communications. How do you have a relationship with your customer or your citizen without communicating to them? How do you build trust? How do you actually have like a proactive relationship with them without communications? And in the old world, of course, we had workflows here, journeys here, and trying to get the two to meet was complicated. Even for Salesforce customers using both bits of technology, it was difficult. There was lags, and sometimes it was hard to get the data across to it as well and back in time. And what this really is that kind of leap to unifying the platforms. So it all begins with that data layer that we said, right? We unify that, we get that sorted, we have a shared infrastructure and a common data platform. That then means that I can activate things wherever I want, whether that's to do with cases, and cases inform communications, sales inform communications, communications inform sales. And then it's also the same with Tableau. It's all being re-platformed. So for anybody who's considering joining Salesforce who isn't a customer right now, this is the way to go, because getting on top of Data Cloud and building your building your transformation on that platform is the way to go, because that's where all of our innovation is actually coming from. And for those that are kind of existing, well, we're going to come on to that with the next question, right?
Very true. Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. Tom, I'm going to give you the mic. I'm going to prime the audience that we're going to answer that question of what's there for current users. I think pretty emphatically, we're excited about some of the content that's been building the last few days. And Chris, we were even speaking before we just went in live here. There's some great stuff coming down the line. And please, folks, when you're watching the content, interacting here, get your questions into the chat. We'll have a couple of polls that I'll call out. But Tom, over to you.
Amazing. Yeah, and thanks for that, Chris. So just a quick introduction as to who we are. So MarCloud, we see ourselves as the marketing automation people for Salesforce, which means we're very well versed in Marketing Cloud. And our CSATs back that up. We're average 4.8 out of 5. I think it's gone up slightly, but we'll go with that, 4.8. And that's globally. So we work with clients across the globe. It could be B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter anymore when it comes to the marketing tools. And that's across sales, marketing, and data cloud. Now, we've built up a lot of knowledge over the years for Marketing Cloud, so much so that we've got our own IP and our own methodology, which we've called B2BMA Nirvana. Basic gist is you can go from 0 to campaign attribution and understanding ROI and where ROI is coming from with this methodology. So we're very, very good at Marketing Cloud. And then the cherry on the top there is the ISO 27001 accreditation that we have because we take data very seriously. So what you came for today in this webinar is Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you all up to speed and just let you know the lay of the land as to what tools are currently available and how we got here. I'm going to give some advice and MarCloud's stance for existing Marketing Cloud customers. I'm going to go through the capabilities and why we're so excited about the new tool, because there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Marketing Cloud on-core. And then lastly, we're going to go through the Einstein AI features, because that's very, very baked into the tool and the product. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions throughout. So please do use the question box and we'll catch up with those at the end. You're on mute, Owen.
Not bad. We've got our first poll. What we're going to ask you, which marketing tool are you currently using? Is it Pardot, which we still like to call it, or Account Engagement, Marketing Cloud Engagement, or neither? Get your answers into the poll. And we'll cover off some of the answers later. It's really just to give us a good reference for who we're talking to and what kind of use cases and challenges you might face. So you can see it bottom right. Submit your votes. Thanks,
I thought it was going to be a quiz on what does Pardot mean.
Oh,
it's at the end.
We'll do that at the end. I was going to put my hand up then. I knew the answer. So the story so far. So back in 2013, little history lesson, there was a company called ExactTarget. They owned a company called Pardot, and Salesforce bought ExactTarget. So at the time, there was Marketing Cloud and there was Pardot. Fast forward to today. Now there's an umbrella name called Marketing Cloud, and then there are products underneath them. ExactTarget Marketing Cloud is now known as Engagement. Pardot is now known as Account Engagement. And now we have this new on-core platform, which doesn't necessarily have a name. It just has additions. It's called Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. So that's the lay of the land. That's all you really need to know to get up to speed so far. As Chris mentioned, Data Cloud is very, very important and underpins the new product. So Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced is powered by Data Cloud. Now, the idea of Data Cloud is to suck in all of this data from different sources to remove silos, basically. So you wouldn't have fragmented data anymore because it's all brought in, it's harmonized to the point where you can create unified individuals. And then all of a sudden you're marketing to people and not data. So you're thinking about the person, you know, their customer transaction history, you know, their website engagement, you know, most things about them and their preferences, which will enable you to send the right message to the right people at the right time, but also importantly on the right channel, because that's their preference. They might have a preference for email over SMS or WhatsApp, whatever it is, we can bake that into our approach. And then subsequently, with all the data that we have within Data Cloud, because there's a lot, well, you can put in anything, it allows for real-time personalization within your communications, which is brilliant. That's what we want. There's a component to this where you can be clever with costs. We haven't touched on the data consumption model, but the model is consumption-based, which is good because it means you can be smart with how you actually use the platform as opposed to paying a license fee, which is a positive move, in my opinion. And the last note on Data Cloud is the two main components, which is identity resolution, which is bringing all your data in, just as I mentioned, to understand all of those data points about an individual or a person. And then you can use data transform to be smart with costs, to use the little bits and pieces that you need. Won't go into too much more detail than that. That's enough of an overview of Data Cloud. We'll get into the more of that information in the ebook that we have.
Yeah, awesome. Good jumping off point, folks. Get your phones out, scan, grab our Salesforce Data Cloud 101 ebook. It covers a lot of what's really good to know, what's good ground levels, as we kind of started out with. And should also just advise, we've got our second poll live. So are you excited to implement MCD Growth Advanced today based on what you've heard so far? Let's get some answers in, and hopefully we can do a good job of helping you see why that excitement might be well placed and worth following through it. So Tom, back to you.
Thank you. So some advice and MarCloud's stance for existing account engagement customers. So first things first, if you've got account engagement growth, nice and simple, you've got access for free to Marketing Cloud Growth. If you've got account engagement plus advanced or premium, you will have access to Marketing Cloud Advanced. If your edition isn't on here and you've got SFDC Standard, Pro or Ultimate, testing my memory there, you need to speak to your account executive because you won't have access to the new tool. Because they're really, really old SKUs basically. But one thing for all of the SKUs is you need to add Data Cloud. As I said, Growth and Advanced are powered by Data Cloud, so therefore you need to accept that and add that onto your license to enable the new platform. Some quick fire questions for existing account engagement users. So our stance: should you ditch account engagement today and move to Growth and Advanced? It's a very explicit no. Account engagement has been around for years and years. It's a brilliant tool, and you should not be thinking now to ditch that and jump ship. A slight different framing of that question though: should you enable Growth or Advanced today as part of a proof of concept? Yes, probably. And I'm going to make a very good case for that when I go through the features and touch on why you should be thinking about the new product. I've got a number of reasons why you should. And then lastly, is Data Cloud worth it as an account engagement user? Again, it's a complete yes, because it helps you market to people instead of leads and contacts. I don't know if you've heard this in the office or in your marketing department, where you marketing to data, to lists, to segments. It's very much, it's not a human way to market. But when you start to think of people as a unified individual, as a person, it does change the frame slightly, or the optics, so that the marketing can be improved and it's a bit better.
Chris, you're very polite. Just jump in.
I don't want to interrupt. Yeah, one thing to add to that, Tom, is for those customers out there that have experienced issues internally with maybe CISO or data provisioning, data protection. If you have had that issue with it being a US-based service, then I think accelerating to the second point there about enabling on it is a really good idea, because with it being a UK resident solution, that means that you've got way, way, way more freedom to actually move data into it, start to use AI to do calculations, et cetera, et cetera. So just one thing to call out.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris. So moving on to the Data Cloud for account engagement. So there's one really, really key feature, and that is just list creation. So you can use real-time data from Data Cloud to create dynamic lists in account engagement. So for example, if you've got you've got a SaaS platform, customer signs up. When they sign up, Data Cloud can see that goes into Data Cloud, and it can then populate a dynamic list. Or similarly, you have a donor, you're a charity, someone donates, they go into Data Cloud, and then they're added into a donor list. Off the back of that, you can then add them to engagement studios, onboarding series, thank you series, whatever it is. But as you can see from the screenshot, you can actually lean on Data Cloud segments to create dynamic lists, which is a really good feature. Normal rules apply though. The prospect must exist in account engagement for that to happen. Moving swiftly on to probably the reason why you came, and that is the Marketing Cloud Advanced capabilities. So this is a fun bit. First off, SMS. So SMS has been notoriously difficult in account engagement previously, much easier in engagement. But the cool part of this is the two-way conversations via Flow. It's that ability for someone to text in a support request or a question or a sales inquiry, and for you to automatically manage that request via automation. And the interesting part of this, and reason why I say mobile marketing, is WhatsApp and WeChat and other platforms will be included later on as well. Again, it's covered by Safe Harbor, but there is that advancement and development on the roadmap. And Agentforce can be baked into this process as well. So you can start to develop agents to do jobs to be done, whether it be to triage support requests via the two-way conversation flow, or perhaps answering questions for you to help free up your team and free up resource. So long as the knowledge is in Salesforce, it's in the knowledge base, you can then build a support bot around that. So you can start to be clever with how you manage agents as part of any of this functionality. Advanced dynamic content is an interesting one, very, very powerful, because now we can use complex branch logic instead of what we might be familiar with in existing platforms. For example, account engagement can lean on one field in an object that's very fixed. Whereas engagement, you might need a developer to code some really clever AMP script. You can be really, really clever with AMP script and do great things, but it does get quite heavy in terms of the development side of things. Whereas this is very much kind of a user-friendly way of building out dynamic content in a very, very specific and personalized way, because you're leaning on the data within Data Cloud. And in the screenshot, as a really basic example, you want to show a piece of content to an opportunity where it's above a certain value, 75,000, and it's in a particular opportunity stage. You might show a default piece of content to everybody else. So real basic example, but really interesting how you can be really targeted with your dynamic content from now on with this functionality.
We are halfway thereabouts, and a good time to take a beat. We have another poll question and an opportunity for you to grab a look at an MCA blog with some dynamic content discussed. You can go grab that scan there and bring yourself to it. But the question we've got is, as an account engagement or Pardot user, have you needed a solution for cross-merge fields before? 4 answers. Yes, we absolutely need it. We could see this being useful. Second, not really. We've never needed this functionality. Or if you don't use Pardot, you're one of the 30% who are using Marketing Cloud Engagement who are on the call, or the 28% who are using neither. Maybe this isn't for you, but if you're in the 41% of voters who've selected you using account engagement, do let us know.
Which segues very nicely into what I think is probably the most powerful part of, or the most powerful feature and most important feature, which is cross-object merge fields. So historically, this has been quite difficult to do in account engagement, much easier in engagement, although still, as Chris said, it's still a separate system. This is all built on core on Data Cloud. This will allow us the ability to use any piece of information that we have within Data Cloud to then personalize communications. So in this instance, it's an email. We can pull in, perhaps it's product information. Here's your purchase. We could say your renewal date is this date. Your account manager is this person. Here's their contact information. Your renewal amount is going to be this. But if you renew today, it's going to be this. You can start to be really smart with how you communicate with whether it be customers, citizens, donors, whoever it is. The point is you can get very, very personalized with the data that you have within Data Cloud. So an amazing feature. Another highly requested one, especially for account engagement users, is A/B testing. So that does feature in the new platform. So I say A/B, you can do plenty of variations, A, B, C, D. I'm actually not sure what the limit is. And you can split the paths by percentage. Really basic example might be, assuming you have the opt-ins, you could test whether email is stronger than SMS. Or it might be you're testing subject lines or text to image ratio with the idea of an outcome. So our tip here is to make this feature worthwhile, you always need a hypothesis, and it needs to be very specific. Whoever you're targeting, and it needs to be specific to a persona, you need to then have an outcome at the end of it. Otherwise, it kind of makes the feature redundant and we're kind of just testing for the sake of it. Subtle changes go a lot further than big changes in this instance. But long story short, very, very nice addition and a very sought after feature for a lot of us. And it wouldn't be a marketing automation platform if it didn't have scoring and grading baked in. I think this is a really nice way to approach scoring and grading, and I'll explain why. The first one's easy, engagement score. This is the activities from the person, your website visits, your downloads, clicks, opens, that sort of thing. Fit score, nothing to do with the gym. This is purely to do with the ICP, so your ideal customer profile. Similar to grading and account engagement, but this is where you're sort of saying, this is the person I target, therefore they're a fit. The two metrics combined spit out an overall score. Now, the reason why this is clever is because you can weight the engagement and the fit scores in any direction. So, for example, if you're an organization that puts more emphasis and weight on the engagement of a person, then you'll lean it towards the engagement score. But if you're not so worried about that and you're focused about the people you're targeting, the job roles they have, the functions they serve, then you would skew it more towards the fit score. And you can adjust and improve this overall score over time. And again, I still love the references to people as opposed to data, because at the end of the day, we're marketing to individuals and people as opposed to numbers and emails on a screen.
I think just to add to that as well, the real nice thing about this MC on Core stuff is that the concept before of like, are you more B2B? Are you more B2C? Most organizations have a bit of both. And, you know, you either end up choosing one that's not a great fit for the other or having two tools. That's gone away with MC on Core. It's fit for B2B and B2C. So it's a really, really great improvement.
Yeah. And I think it's Data Cloud that unlocks that flexibility and kind of blurs the lines. It just creates that one platform, which you can kind of see why Salesforce have made that development. Not so fun, but very, very, very important is the consent model and the consent side of things. So it is separate from the Sales Cloud consent side of things. There's basically two checkboxes at least, which is a good thing. So there's a lot more of an emphasis on preference management. In other words, the channels that you use. So in a real basic example, your channels in this instance would be SMS or email. In future, it might be WhatsApp, etc. And that channel preference can then be used and referred to within the flow, within the journeys. So you might say, look, someone's opted out of emails completely, but we still have their SMS consent. So therefore, we can communicate with them via SMS. And that can all be managed within the flow journey. A tip from us, I mean, we recommend every organization has a good preference center, primarily because it's just good practice to have that kind of relationship with your audience and your recipients, prevents opt-outs and so on. But more importantly, it's crucial to have a strong database of record. In other words, you must not have a fragmented consent model or system, because if someone opts out over here, it needs to marry up and that needs to propagate across the whole entire sort of ecosystem of consent. Otherwise, you sort of open yourself up to risks around GDPR and other sort of compliance issues. So super important point, really, really important to stress that preference centers are a good thing.
Yeah, let me nip in and pitch gently out to the audience. If anyone is having trouble or concerns around how you're currently managing consent, let us know. I deal with this regularly with my team. We're constantly talking to customers. We engage them for the first time or even in long-term engagements around how do we get this right? How do we make sure we prove it's right? And then how do we turn it into a not a problem, but actually a benefit? How can we use it to have those better conversations with people? As Tom, as you've been saying a couple of times now, is to not just treat people as units in the database, but rather people who have preferences. Let's honor them. Let's use that to our benefit and theirs. And it's a great problem to unpack because the benefits are pretty big.
Definitely. Shout out to these extra highlights. So I didn't have a slide dedicated to these, but we still need to reference them because they're very, very useful. With the first one being, as Chris has already mentioned, data hosting and data residency within UK and Europe. We know there's the UK GDPR and then there's the European GDPR. They are separate. You can choose where your data resides. Really, really strong selling point. Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything to that point.
Other than we fought really hard for it, please take advantage of it. Certainly with our PubSec customers, right? The most interesting data, the most useful data and the best insights that you're going to gain is most likely from the most sensitive data, and the most sensitive data has to stay in the UK. So that's why we did it, so that you can innovate and really use your data to actually power these interventions. Amazing.
Unified individuals, prospects are now people. So when you think about marketing to people, your marketing improves. So I love that unified approach. Creating campaigns in minutes. I'll get to this. I'll show you a little video of Einstein in action. You can create campaigns in minutes rather than hours, days, weeks, months. Sometimes campaigns do take that long, but it gets you 80% of the way. Reply mail management. This is a norm for engagement users, but for account engagement users, if anyone's run a campaign in August, you will love this feature. The amount of out of office messages that it will save you is astounding. And you can also triage any replies to a sort of managed inbox, which is always super helpful. There's a new brief object. So the new object in Salesforce. Now, this is quite interesting because, I mean, as marketers, you normally create a brief anyway, perhaps outside of Salesforce. Whereas the new tool, Growth in Advanced, will allow you to create a brief within Salesforce. The reason why it's quite helpful is because what you type in will inform Einstein to the point that it will help you then create segments and content. I'll show you in a minute what that looks like, but it's a really, really sort of neat addition to the platform. And then lastly, there's branding for email assets. Really, really nice feature. It's a long time coming. Where you can set the branding at the top level. Now, just a side plug, Marco, we've actually built a drag and drop email builder for account engagement users. Definitely message us about that if you're interested. But branding profiles feature as part of that, fonts, colors, button shaping, and so on. So we've done a lot of work on the drag and drop side of things, which is super exciting. On to Einstein then. So the fun stuff. I wouldn't be responsible if I didn't start talking about the trust layer. Yes, this is what underpins the whole sort of Einstein system. So it's really easy to enable the Einstein features, like it really is. But the part to pay attention to is the configuration of it. Salesforce have given us a lot of different options and a lot of sort of testing to be able to make sure that our Einstein setup is appropriate, it's reliable, and it's trustworthy. As you can see from the screenshot or the image, there's so many different parts to this that just layer in extra levels of trust. So dynamic grounding, that's where you can use real CRM data to actually make your prompts more relevant. Data masking protects the data so it doesn't leave the system. Prompt defense, so no one can actually manipulate the requests and the prompts that go in. Zero retention, really, really key one. Nothing is saved outside of Salesforce, so nothing leaves the system. So there's no risk of sort of data leakage, etc. And then the last two, that I'll mention, toxicity detection, really important that all of the prompts return good results. And then an audit trail. So throughout this whole process, you can test and monitor Einstein before you deploy, and then after and as you deploy, or within deployment, sorry. There's a lot of trust baked into all of this. So a quick break on the eyes. We'll go for a little video, and I'll just go through the Einstein creation process. So I'm just going to play this on a slower speed so we can go through it. So this is me creating a campaign targeting the education sector, and I'm going to target marketing managers. So I've asked Einstein to create me a campaign. It started with the brief, as I alluded to earlier. That's going to set the tone of the prompts that I asked for. So that object can be created. Brilliant. It's then going to create the campaign. So campaign name, campaign overview, and then it can create that for me. I can edit all of this afterwards as I go, or I can ask Einstein to change certain parts. But for now, I'm happy with that as a brief. So this brief is important. I'm going to remove some of the extra description because this is going to impact the segment that I create in a moment. So I've edited that. I'm happy. I want to go over to the campaign and then start creating my segment. But I'm not going to do the work. I'm going to let Einstein do the work for me. So I select segment. I choose the option for Einstein to do the work for me instead of me. And it's going to create that segment that I need. So it's as simple as selecting Einstein. The data cloud work's already done. And that's the prompt that was in the brief just a moment ago. So now it's going to create that segment for me. Now, again, I still have full control over all of this because once it produces the result, I can edit the segment rules if I need to. I can also test the population. Is it roughly what I expected it to be? And then that's the segment saved. So brilliant. That's my target people in a space. I can now go back to the campaign and edit the email content in this instance. So if I edit this email, I am going to use Einstein to create some content to populate this email. So I don't like what's in there currently. I'm going to delete this out and I'm just going to press a magic button to create some new content for me. So if you give it a second, it's going to spit out an option for me to accept or try again. Now, I don't like this content, so I'm going to just try again. It now knows I don't like it, so it's going to now rewrite that whole paragraph and see if I like the next variation of this, to which I will like. Spoiler, I'm going to accept this and it's going to plug it into the email. Now, just to finish this all off, to make this email somewhat ready to go, I am going to apply a branding profile to this email just to make it look a bit nicer. The creative team have already created that for me, and now it's changed the font, changed the colors, and now it's a much more Marcloud type email. So that's it in a snapshot. That took less than 2 minutes to create a campaign and create an email. Just imagine what you can do with much more time than that.
I think it's something I say to my team, and I've picked up from talking to a lot of more experienced people than me in the world in general, but it's way easier to be an editor than a creator. So if you can leverage the speeds to get execution done on a certain key items through Einstein, click a button, give it a prompt, refine the prompt, get the results, shape of what your campaign needs to be, 85% of the way there. It's really easy to close that gap for the last 15, and the time commit is substantially reduced, which I think I see in some small amount of AI-enabled work that I do with my team. I've no doubt this is going to be great for marketers, just given the conversations we're having about, you mentioned, Tom, the time it takes to ramp a campaign up from idea to execution. We're trying to squeeze that right down. And then what you've shown earlier on around running sequences and activities through flows, again, it all just bakes into a much better user experience, faster, and pulling all the right data together.
Yeah, the key is speed. Which kind of alludes to these next couple of features that we'll run through. Einstein send time optimization, you might be familiar with. Goal around this is to email someone when they're most likely to engage. So, for example, Owen might open his emails at 1 a.m, which is not typical of most people. But let's just say that we've got a lot of data to back that up. Over the last couple of months, that's when Owen opens his emails. So Einstein can notice that and say, do you know what? I'm going to send a lot of these emails to people around when they open theirs. But for Owen, we're going to send it at 1 a.m, because that's gives us the most chance for a response or for engagement. Now, for organizations with limited data or limited history, there is a feature called pooled data, which essentially means that you can lean on opted-in global models that Salesforce gives you so that you can still use send time optimization, except you don't necessarily need this whole treasure trove of data to mine and lean on. So that was a really, really nice touch from Salesforce for that. Couple more then. So Einstein engagement frequency, and these are specific to Marketing Cloud Advanced. This is to prevent email fatigue. If you're emailing people too much, it will flag this. Same with the scoring. It's going to come up with its own sort of analysis of the scores and what they should be, and give that number, which you can reference when creating segments and so on. Got another poll. You want to mute, Owen?
Cool. We have our fourth poll. I will give Jana a quick nudge if we can publish and get it live. Our fourth poll, quite simply, towards the end here and what you've heard so far, are you now a little bit more excited about a roadmap or an implementation journey for MC Growth and Advanced? When we first asked this question, 52% of you said maybe, and I'd like to learn some more. I'd be very interested to hear, have we helped you close out that gap? And if not, then please ask us those questions or think of those questions before we get off this call, and help us to give you a better impression as to what your first step might be. Back to you, Tom.
Amazing. So another little extra feature is Einstein Metrics Guard. So this will be really, really key and quite interesting for public sector, financial services, anyone in cyber or any regulated industry. Because what you will be very familiar with is activity that's automated from bots, security scanners, automatic opens, and that type of thing. The Einstein Metrics Guard kind of filters that out, and it keeps the real engagement in to make your reports very accurate, and it keeps the bot, the security scanners, and the incorrect data. It kind of filters that out. So it's just a nice addition so that your reports are often more accurate. And then coming to the end before we go to Q&A. So harnessing Einstein. So Einstein for us, from MarCloud, it gets you most of the way there. And when we say most of the way, we're treating this like an 80-20 rule. Einstein for 80%, but then it still needs that human 20% on top. Finessing the language, finessing the comms, and adding that sort of extra layer that we still need within marketing to make the communication more effective, the conversion rates improve, etc. Let Einstein do most of the legwork, and then for you to do the rest. It's great for under-resourced teams. The Einstein Trust layer, extremely important. Definitely, we can talk to anyone about that after the webinar if you need to. Really, really important concept, and gives that trust and reassurance that all of this is the right way to go. Co-create for speed, and we also, of course, have an ebook to download for more information, which you can get here.
Yeah, you can grab that right there if you're interested in learning a little more about Einstein, Salesforce Marketing GPT. Scan and grab that. We're almost there. We've got a couple of questions, and at this point, I'm just going to pause and invite a couple more. If there's anything from top of the call through to now that you've still got a burning question for, or even have an idea, please jump it into either the questions or the chat. Earlier on, Bianca asked, is this really only relevant for those that are using Marketing Cloud and not Marketing Cloud Account Engagement? I think there's a blend in that. My perspective would be, it depends what you want to do. If you're on one platform or the other, you will have different assets and tools available to you. But really, what do you want to do with your audience? What you've heard around unification of customer data, getting your comms out to people and not just units. If that's something your organization is trying to unpack, then this could be really relevant. If it's something you're not struggling with, maybe there's something else in the Einstein features and the speed to deploy that will help you. But I think that even might be a question for you to answer, or you yourself. Moving down to, maybe I'll pitch this to you, Tom. So just, so Hussein has asked, to have access to MC Advanced features, is it sufficient to have Pardot Advanced Prem, or is it must be on Data Cloud installed too? So
yeah, so in that instance, if you've got Premium or Advanced, you've got it as part of your sort of license. You just need to add the Data Cloud SKU to your sort of licensing. So that part's quite important for the enablement. So then the best thing to do is just to speak to your account executive, and then they can help you sort that out. But you will have it as part of that license.
Brilliant. Bianca has also asked, we are focused on the US. Is consent and GDPR as important to us? I mean, consent, yeah, I think for sure. It's really just permission-based marketing is how the Salesforce ecosystem generally wants you to run any email machine. GDPR will be relevant if you're communicating to anybody in the European region, including the UK. Depends where your data is and who you want to talk to. I think was my answer to that. I don't know, Tom, if you wanted to expand on it, or am I over the target?
No, that makes sense. I think, yeah, consent's still important. You do need to abide by the the laws wherever you market. So yes, I'm not going to give legal advice now, but consent's still just good practice, especially when you just get better engagement that way. It's good practice, good marketing, and you will see results off the back of it.
Awesome. We have one question, which I think, and Kumar, I'll pitch this back to you, is a little technical for what we're trying to discuss today. It might even need to have a little conversation with us. More than happy to invite you to do that. It sounds quite specific. Jen has asked, though, regarding Metrics Guard. I see a lot of bot traffic in list emails. What are people doing these days when clicks are so unreliable?
So there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, clicks tend to be, well, they're more reliable than opens. Opens are very unreliable, at least historically. What you could do is track the landing page. So typically what happens is, a click tends to go somewhere, whether it be to download a file or to view a web page. So you can track the other side. Rather than tracking the click, you can track the actual landing on the page or the download of the file. That might be a more reliable way to do it, as opposed to actually tracking the click. It's up to you. Depends how often you're seeing it and if it warrants that move. But it might do. It depends.
Yeah, I think in my experience, though limited, it's just to find out what the key indicator of success in an action, whether it's the open, the response, the follow-up. Have they clicked the link? Have they then engaged with what's behind the link? Try and pick the metric that's of most importance to you and center your results around it. And then obviously you can build in a little protection around what might be bot links, bot clicks, etc. as a result of that. You don't have to do it across the whole activity, though. You just do it on that key area, that key metric. John has asked, in Engagement Studios, which is in account engagement, will it be possible to sequence email and SMS in the same studio?
I'll answer this question a couple of ways. The answer is yes and yes. So number one, yes, you can do it in an engagement studio. So you can actually send emails and SMS from account engagement studio. But what I think you mean is in the new product. So in the new product, it's called a flow. So in that flow builder, that's what it's called. Will it be possible to sequence email and SMS? Yes, of course. You can have email, SMS. You can split it by channel preference. You can do it all in the new product. So it's a double yes for that one, which you'll be pleased to know.
Cool. We've one last question, and then Chris, I'll give you the last word. As an organization that uses Account Engagement Plus edition, currently does not have Data Cloud, that could be easily fixed. I think talking to your AE, what are the initial licenses like for Data Cloud? You're definitely going to have to talk to your AE. How does the Data Cloud pricing work if we would like to transition to Marketing Cloud Advanced from Pardot? Very good question. Third time, talk to your AE. So your Salesforce team are going to be very receptive to conversations right about now on anything to do with Data Cloud, because we're doing calls about it. We're meeting Salesforce product managers, product marketing leads, product strategists, because everything is going in this direction. They'll be delighted to hear from you. So my recommendation to anyone who has questions around pricing, getting started, POCs, etc., begin with your Salesforce account team. Chris.
Thanks, Owen. And yeah, there is a freemium version of Data Cloud that you can provision, so you can actually have a look at that if you want to, but it's best to speak to your AE first, because if you've got quite a lot of utilization, then it might be better to actually go on to the paid for starter where you get more upfront rather than a pay-as-you-go model. Last thing I wanted to say here is, I think we still fall into the trap sometimes with it being called Marketing Cloud, right? This is a digital communication tool. This is a tool that is capable of delivering behavior change en masse or at a small level. And essentially what most organizations are trying to do is sort of deliver some sort of behavior change. And we've been so impressed with the work that we've done with Thames Valley Police in the UK, where their call centers were being blasted. The problem was the data was in the police call center, but it wasn't in the hands of the victim of crime or the citizen. And with very simple plugging of gaps in the internal process and the external communications, we took 10% of the demand away, increased satisfaction by 15%, and saved them £1.4 million in 1 year. And that took like 3 months to actually deliver. So when you're thinking about how to apply this, when you're thinking about what does bringing digital communications more integrated into my CRM mean, it means so much more than what we probably think initially. It's about getting closer to your internal processes and exposing that data to increase trust, to increase satisfaction, and ultimately to reassure the citizen, the customer, the organization that you have got what they're doing in hand and they don't have to call you, they don't have to email you. But then it still does all of those cool marketing things. So really do come away from this and think about how you can apply digital communications in a different way in your organization too, where it's to be closer to your existing flows that you have.
What a great final thought. Thanks, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for joining, staying on to the end. Really, really appreciate those questions and your answers in the polls. We hope you have already downloaded some of the content that was distributed throughout the webinar. But if you want access to any of it, you will definitely find it at markcloud.com. In the meantime, look forward to seeing you at the next one. And thanks, folks. Have a great day.